Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a real scientific detective story. We're looking at a pathogen that has captured global attention and, honestly, global fear for decades. We're going to move all the way from the terrifying stakes of a sudden outbreak to humanity's incredible, hard-won medical triumphs against it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet the Ebola virus, then look at how the virus spreads. After that, we go inside the human body, map out a history of outbreaks, and finally, look at prevention and modern treatments.
All right, Section 1, meet the Ebola virus.
So right out of the gate, let's establish exactly what we're dealing with. Ebola Virus Disease, or EVD for short, is a severe zoonotic viral hemorrhagic fever. It affects humans and other primates, and it's caused by Ebola viruses. This is a complex, formidable biological antagonist, and we really need to unmask it to understand it.
And here's why it commands so much attention. 50%. That is the average mortality rate for Ebola outbreaks. But honestly, historically, depending on the specific viral species and how fast a patient gets treatment, we've seen that rate swing anywhere from 25% to a staggering 90%. We're dealing with a virus where the stakes are quite literally life or death. Now, this disease follows a pretty grim step-by-step progression. It's basically a three-phase assault. First is the onset. Anywhere from 2 to 21 days after exposure, boom, it hits you like severe influenza. You get a high fever, intense fatigue, aching muscles. Then, usually about 5 to 7 days in, we hit phase 2. Internal and external bleeding starts because the body just loses its ability to clot blood. Finally, phase 3 is recovery or death, happening usually 6 to 16 days after those first symptoms pop up. And surviving this? Well, it heavily depends on how fast you can get supportive treatment going.
Which brings us to Section 2, how the virus spreads.
So how does it actually get to us? It utilizes a highly specific chain of events. The natural host is believed to be fruit bats, and get this, they carry the virus without actually getting sick themselves. But then, a zoonotic spillover happens. Usually somebody hunts or handles infected bushmeat, like a bat or a non-human primate. Once it crosses over into the human population, it spreads from person to person exclusively through direct contact with blood, sweat, or other bodily fluids. And tragically, it actually exploits human empathy and grief. Unsafe burial practices, where grieving families wash or touch their deceased loved ones, have historically triggered massive spikes in transmission.
Now, inevitably, whenever there's an outbreak, one massive question always sparks widespread public panic. Is Ebola airborne?
So, the crucial point here is myth-busting. The absolute reality is that human-to-human spread requires direct contact with infected bodily fluids, period. There are 0 documented cases in nature of Ebola spreading through the air between humans. The whole airborne myth actually stems from some rare laboratory studies where scientists saw it spread through the air from pigs to primates. But that's just because pigs happen to accumulate the specific virus in their lungs. Humans, on the other hand, accumulate it in our blood. Understanding that scientific difference is absolutely key to stopping the panic.
Let's dig a little deeper in Section 3, inside the human body.
I like to think of Ebola as a stealth invader. Normally when a virus breaches your body, your cells immediately blast out an SOS signal using proteins called interferons. But Ebola is incredibly sneaky. It uses 2 structural proteins, VP24 and VP35, to actively jam those interferon alarms. It essentially cuts the communication lines of your immune system right off the bat, allowing the virus to replicate rapidly and silently before your body even fully realizes it's under attack.
And once it slips past those initial alarms, the devastation really begins. It goes straight for the macrophages first. Those are a type of white blood cell. From there, the virus attacks the endothelial cells, which form the vital linings of your blood vessels. As those vessel linings break down, the body starts leaking fluid incredibly fast. And it's this extreme, rapid fluid loss, combined with the internal bleeding, that throws the body into systemic shock. That's exactly why aggressive hydration and managing blood pressure become the absolute most critical factors for keeping patients alive.
Moving right along to Section 4, a history of outbreaks. Let's zoom out and see how this builds over time, because this threat has been stepping up for decades. It first hit the medical radar in 1976 during 2 simultaneous outbreaks in Zaire and Sudan. Fast forward to the 2013 to 2016 window, and we saw the massive West African epidemic, which was just completely unprecedented in its scale and reach.
And the threat definitely hasn't vanished. In fact, as recently as May 2026, a 17th epidemic was declared in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This virus is absolutely a recurring antagonist in modern history.
But here's the thing. Not all Ebola viruses are exactly the same. We're looking at different strains here. You've got Zaire, which is the most dangerous and causes the largest outbreaks. Then there's Sudan, responsible for one of those original 1976 outbreaks, and Bundabaguyo, discovered later in 2007 over in Uganda. But check out the Reston strain. This one is a total anomaly. It was actually found in 1989 in U.S. research labs over in Virginia. And while it definitely affects primates and pigs, incredibly, it has very low pathogenicity for humans and doesn't make us sick at all. Wild, right?
When those dangerous strains do affect humans, though, the cost is staggering. 11,310. That is the devastating death toll from the catastrophic 2013 to 2016 West Africa epidemic alone. Up to that point, it was the most severe acute public health emergency in modern times. It proved that once this virus finds its way into dense urban populations, the consequences are almost unimaginable.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Prevention and Modern Treatments.
The good news? Today, we deploy a highly coordinated, multi-pronged defense system. We've got the fully approved rVSV-ZEBOV vaccine. We use incredibly aggressive contact tracing to box the virus in before it can spread. We protect our frontline caregivers with full coverage PPE, literally blocking that fluid transmission. And crucially, communities have adapted, creating safe, modified burial rituals. These still respect the deceased, but they maintain a strict protective barrier for the living. Now, what's really amazing here is the medical triumph on the therapeutic side. FDA-approved treatments, like Inmazeb, combined with early and aggressive rehydration, have completely transformed survival rates. A diagnosis of Ebola? It is no longer an automatic death sentence. With rapid medical intervention and the right supportive care, it is now a survivable illness. We are actively turning the tide against this stealth invader.
But we really can't let our guard down, as things like climate change, extreme weather, and deforestation keep pushing wildlife out of their natural habitats and right to the edges of human settlements. Those zoonotic spillovers we talked about, they're only going to become more likely. So the question we have to ask ourselves now is this: as these forces collide, how will human ingenuity continue to adapt to conquer the outbreaks of tomorrow? Thanks for exploring this explainer with me today. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.